All right. Good morning or good afternoon, everyone, depending on where you are. As Matt just stated, we're here to provide an overview of changes related to the MAS Solicitation Refresh 31, which is tentatively scheduled for February 2026. On the agenda today, I will read a disclaimer. We'll provide you with the purpose of planned action, and then we will provide you with mass solicitation changes as they are related to all the large categories, specific large category, subcategory, or SIN. We will be discussing TDR expansion as well as changes to the startup springboard. Please bear with me as I read this disclaimer in full. The purpose of this webinar is to allow GSA FAS to verbally present the draft plan solicitation refresh and related mass modification as a courtesy to industry. All comments on the information presented should be submitted via the Q&A function on this call. GSA FAS will consider all relevant comments and document them, but we are not obligated to respond to any questions at this time. GSA FAS may address some comments during the call or provide responses to relevant questions on the original Interact posting. GSA FAS does not guarantee a response to all questions, but may issue a formal response to industry comments or related inquiries. GSA FAS will make changes to the draft as appropriate. Interested parties should review the final version of the solicitation refresh or mass modification closely for additional changes made to this draft. As Matt already stated, please submit questions via the Q&A function, and then they will be posted to the original Interact posting as well as the webinar slides. All right, so we'll get right into it. So the mass solicitation changes related to all large categories. So for the overview of plan mass solicitation changes, we will be incorporating government terms and conditions for AI systems, for any AI systems or services offered under the mass solicitation. Offers will need to comply with the government terms and conditions for AI systems. We intend to post a draft of these government terms and conditions for AI systems as it gets closer to the refresh. So please keep an eye out. You will receive an email with the notification that the Interact notice has been updated. We'll be updating the firearms and ammunition language in each large category, explicitly excluding foreign replica weapons and inert ordnance from the scope of the MAS program. There will be clause and provision updates included related to TDR, various clause provision updates to align with the Revolutionary FAR overhaul, or as we all know it, RFO, and then any updates necessary through FACT 2025-06. Updated subcontracting plans. So these templates were, we did make the announcement in the Interact notice, but we went ahead and updated these on gsa.gov as of January 28th. So these templates now align with OSBU requirements and should be used by all contractors. Again, these templates are updated on our gsa.gov site. There will be various revisions to the instructions to all offers, SCP FSS 001, to streamline requirements and reflect mandatory TDR for all MAS SINs, as well as updated pricing requirements. So we did highlight a few changes here, but there is a draft SCP FSS 001 currently attached to the Advanced Interact Notice for Refresh 31. Two significant changes that we wanted to highlight here is adding a note related to Startup Springboard. So as of Refresh 31, the Startup Springboard participation will be limited to fast lane participants only. Interested participants should review their eligibility at the following link, which is currently up on gsa.gov. It's the Fast Lane Making It Easier gsa.gov page. And existing Springboard contractors will be allowed to remain on schedule and will be evaluated at option time. We'll also be adding a note regarding the 24-month waiting period for contractors in their final option period. So the government may reject offers from offers who were previously awarded a scheduled contract for which there were unresolved issues of noncompliance with T&Cs. This also includes low sales at the expiration of the final option period. This also includes offers from JVs whose JV partners' previous scheduled contracts had unresolved issues or low or no sales. So offers are strongly encouraged to include with their offer a discussion of any of these unresolved compliance issues at the expiration of the previous scheduled contract, as well as detailed steps that you plan to take to remain in good standing. Again, the draft SCP is up on is posted to the Advanced Interact notice if you want to take a look. All right, so changes to specific large category, subcategory, or SINs. So starting with office management, there will be various revisions to the office supplies subcategory. There will specifically the OS4 SINs and the SBC. So we'll be adding clarification to SIN instructions regarding the FOB note. And annotated here is the additions are in red. So this SIN is FOB destination, but there is an exception for those the FOB origin. It's only applicable under these SINs for individual items that are 70 pounds or more. We will be making revisions to the subcategory instructions for OS4 and 339940 SIN descriptions. So all references to the entire catalog and or the 80/20 rule will be removed, as well as any references to furniture, restroom products, or IT being authorized for award under subcategory A09 office supplies. Again, you can see the significant changes, which is attached to the Advanced Interact notice. There are, we provided line in, line out changes. For the OS4 SIN, the proposed changes are highlighted here for the revised SIN description. So office products include, but are not limited to, items such as pens, pencils, markers, paper, etc. Again, you can take a look at this line in, line out change. It's attached. It's on the attached significant changes document. 339940. So the below required documents, those will also be revised. They're applicable to these specific SINs. So the letter of compliance for SIN 339940, we will be changing this to definitions and an examples attachment. So there will be no signature required, only for SIN 339940 for that letter of compliance. But the letter of compliance will still stand for the OS4 SIN and will require signature. And then we'll be making updates to the GSA business rules and agreement for the MAS enhanced OS4 SINs. And again, we just have two notes here giving direction for existing contractors. So those existing contractors awarded the OS4 and 33940, you will receive communication regarding these changes. And then those holding SIN 339940 OS4 will be required to complete that updated letter of compliance and the business rules agreement attachment. The updated letters must be incorporated through a revised terms and conditions mod. But again, you will receive communication regarding these changes and the actions that you need to take. Contractors holding these two SINs as well, who are awarded IT products, furniture, or other items determined to be out of scope of these SINs, will be required to submit modification requests to remove those items. The printing and photographic equipment subcategory. So we'll be making a minor revision to SIN 333249 instructions to include 3D printing filaments and resins as examples of AM consumable materials. Again, all of this is detailed on the significant changes with line in, line out changes. Human capital, large category. So specifically the human resources subcategory, we will be adding SIN instructions for SIN 524292, which is separation and retirement. So we're going to include the human capital business reference model 4.0 subfunction titles for consistency. Revisions to SIN description instructions for 54161, the agency human capital evaluation SIN, the employee performance management SIN, employee relations, agency human capital strategy SIN, as well as the talent acquisition and talent development. So all of these will be updated with functions and subfunctions to align with OPM's human capital business reference model 4.0. The information technology large category. So the following language will be added to the general information section, that each IT SIN has its own special requirements. All proposed ITC labor categories must include differentiation in both the title and the description to comply with the specific ITC SIN under which it is proposed. We'll also be making revisions to the Automated Contact Center Solution SIN 561422. So again, you can see the proposed changes line in and line out on the significant changes. But basically, we were just adding this statement that any labor categories offered must be in support of the total solution and cannot be a standalone offering. Miscellaneous large category. So specifically the OLM SIN, which is under the complementary SIN subcategory. With refresh 30, we made the SIN description changes. Now this refresh, we will be updating the SIN instructions to eliminate the subcategory limitation. So LLM can be used with any other SIN on MAS. Again, we're eliminating those subcategory limitations. We did want to highlight here that the RFO has changed the flexibility for including open market items. So given these changes, we strongly encourage MAS contractors to add the OLM SIN to their contract. It'll be the same process. So for any new awardee, MAS modification will continue to be issued for acceptance of the OLM SIN. And the OLM SIN is still optional. So you can either accept to add it to your contract or not accept it. And we're giving a one-time opportunity again for all current MAS contractors who did not yet have the OLM SIN on their contract, whether you declined it the first time after award. So you will be offered, again, that one-time MAS modification to add the OLM SIN if you choose to do so. Okay, the professional services large category, specifically the financial services subcategory. So there will be revisions to the SIN instructions for the auditing services SIN. We're going to remove the certified public accountant and peer review requirement from the current instructions, and then we are going to advise that the ordering contract officers are encouraged to verify the CPA licensure at the task order level as applicable. As for the training subcategory, there will be SIN description and instruction updates specifically to the 611 train AW SIN. So we will be removing outdated FAI links, course equivalency, which is now solely listed on DAU. We're going to provide an updated DAU link to the course equivalency list and remove any duplicate instructions from the SIN description. Again, the same thing for the SIN 611430, which is the professional and management development training. Going to update FAI links and course equivalency also for this SIN. Excuse me. Transportation and logistics services. So motor vehicles, the non-combat subcategory. There will be SIN instruction updates for SIN 488190, which is aircraft components maintenance, repair, services, extended warranties, and maintenance agreements. So these SIN instructions will be updated to remove all references to the original equipment manufacturer. Again, you can see the significant changes document for line in, line out changes specific to this SIN. The next few SIN updates are specific to the SIN templates that are applicable to specific SINs such as 492110, which is the package delivery and freight trucking. Also the 492210, the courier delivery services. You got the SIN 485 ground transportation, automotive equipment rental. Again, these are all updates to the SIN specific templates. By way of removing the instructions tab from each price proposal template. These terms are already included in the MAS solicitation, so we're just streamlining this. The travel large category. Again, SIN 531 taking on the same changes as I just previously noted, that the instructions tab from this SIN specific template will be removed, as well as for the long-term lodging SIN. As for the travel agency and miscellaneous services subcategory, this SIN specific template will also be updated, as well as the statement of work. So for the SIN specific template, there will be new CLINs. We updated the ETS next to go.gov. And then there's minor edits, administrative edits to all 4 tabs. For the statement of work revisions, they're detailed out on the significant changes. They were pretty lengthy, so we didn't want to include them on here. But again, for your reference, you can see them on the significant changes, which provide you with the full details of them. Now I'm going to pass it over to Joe McGuire, who's with the Office of Policy and Compliance, for the expansion of TDR SIN eligibility.
Thanks, Dana. So, expansion of TDR. So beginning with refresh 31, TDR is going to be mandatory across all MAS SINs. So there are currently 165 SINs that are eligible for TDR, and the remaining 112 are now going to become eligible as well, again, making it mandatory across all of MAS. So if you currently have a contract that is non-TDR, the requirements to monitor your price reductions and basis of award and all that will stay in effect until you get to the TDR opt-in date. So hopefully it'll be a very short amount of time, but we'll talk about the opt-in dates here in just a second. Okay. Yeah, so the MFC columns on the FCP documents and the PPTs will remain. And again, if you submit a modification before you get to your TDR opt-in date, continue to use those columns. But once you get past your TDR opt-in date, again, the MFC and all of those things are no longer required, and so those will be left blank. We'll talk a little more specifically about that in a second. All right, non-TDR offers. So if you have an offer in-house, we are requesting that you withdraw your offer. The reason for that is the system just isn't quite robust enough to be able to accept those changes after the refresh has been issued. Now, if you don't withdraw it, we will almost certainly reject your offer. Now, once your offer has been withdrawn, we want you to take a look at the TDR information pages and look at the reporting requirements. They are fairly different than they currently are now, and we want to be sure that everybody has the opportunity to determine for themselves whether or not continuing to pursue a MAS contract under TDR is appropriate for their business. So along the lines of withdrawing your offer, so we are tracking the order of offers as they currently are in-house. And we are going to do our very best to be sure that once offers are resubmitted under the new TDR framework, that they are in the same position as they were when they were withdrawn. And we're going to do our best to get them back to the same CO or CS. And if you have already communicated with CORCS regarding your offer, please let them know when you do resubmit. That way it can be on their radar and they can be ready to work that. And be sure that when you're resubmitting under the TDR framework that you remove the MFC information, again, because that is no longer required. Be sure to leave them blank. Right, if you are an existing MAS contractor that is not TDR, so you're going to get two MAS mods. The first one will be the refresh mod to update to refresh 31. The second will be a MAS mod to opt into TDR. And that will transition you from the quarterly reporting to monthly reporting. So you have 90 days to accept these refreshes. We would like to ask that you do that much sooner. We'll talk about the benefit of that here in just a second. And that the TDR effective date and begin date will be the first day of the next reporting quarter. All right, here's a list of clauses that are changing. So the top set is the ones that will be removed. Those are the legacy clauses and things related to the old FAR and GSAR. And then the bottom set are ones that are being added and are based on the current GSAR deviations. So the terms and conditions that are changing. So the big one, price reductions clause as it currently exists, no longer applicable. CSP is no longer going to be required. Most favored customer information isn't required. Basis of award, discount relationship tracking, no longer required. Now, if you are submitting an economic price adjustment request, you are still required to provide us with an established pricing document. So if you're based on a commercial price list, submitting that is still required with that modification. Now, as far as basis of award goes, you do still need to track that information until you get to your opt-in to TDR date. So once you get to April 1st or any of these other dates, again, the beginning of the next reporting quarter, that's when you stop monitoring your basis of award. And then when you get to that TDR opt-in date, then you'll start recording your transactional data and getting ready to report it at the appropriate time, which is 30 days after the current period. And we're also asking that after your TDR effective date, when you do eventually submit a modification, that you update it to remove any reference to MFC BOA and CSP, because again, those will no longer be applicable to you. All right, a couple of examples here of opting in, what that might look like. So you get your MAS mods, you accept the refresh 31 MAS mod, and then you get to the opt-in to TDR. You accept that on February 27th. So you continue to track your basis of award and all of those things right up until April 1st, because that's when the TDR effective date is, once you sign that prior to April 1st. Now, let's say you miss that. You think, I want to get my taxes done. I'm going to do this afterwards. So you accept that MAS mod on April 15th. Your TDR effective date will be July 1st, because again, that's the first date of the next reporting quarter. So reporting requirements. There are 12 mandatory fields. You can see the first 12 here in this list. There are 4 optional fields that we hope you'll provide us with, but again, they're optional. The last 2 on the list are mandatory, but only if you hold an OS4 SIN. And reporting for services looks different than it does for products. So first, you'll obviously report all applicable fields. But for services, we're also asking you to upload a copy of either PWS, SOO, or SOW, whichever you're operating under at the task order level. And if you are reporting on a firm fixed price task order, that you provide us with a description of what was invoiced that particular period. And as far as the applicable fields go, services, obviously, you're not going to have a manufacturer name or part number, and so those would just be left blank. And we do have quite a bit more information that's located in the MAS upload instructions within the SRP user guide. And we've got a few resources here. We've got a couple of upcoming trainings that are available, and some links to TDR resources as well as the SRP page. And then if you can't find answers to your questions within those resources, trainings, or reaching out to your CO, there's a couple of email addresses that you can reach out to for additional support.
All right, thanks, Joe. I did scan the Q&A, and I do see a lot of startup springboard questions, so hopefully we will answer them in this next slide. So changes for startup springboard limitation. So the startup springboard program will be restricted to offers who meet the eligibility requirements for the fast lane. And to be eligible under fast lane for startup springboard, these offers are only applicable under the information technology category, so that the ITC large category. And then to participate, startup springboard offers must, again, be assigned to an ITC contracting officer, submit only ITC special item number SINs, with the exception of the ancillary SIN, be tied to an eligible federal IT initiative. You will need to provide a written request from a customer agency and meet strict response timelines for offer and modification reviews. So this limitation means that only newer firms proposing ITC offerings that are agency sponsored and meet all fast lane criteria can utilize the startup springboard pathway. We will be making updates to the startup springboard and fast lane pages on gsa.gov. The pages will clearly define the updated requirements. And then for in-house startup springboard offers submitted prior to Refresh 31, these will still be fully reviewed under the existing, whether it's Refresh 30 or an earlier refresh, springboard requirements. If for any reason these startup springboard offers are rejected, any resubmitted offer must either meet Fastlane eligibility, and if you do not meet the Fastlane eligibility requirements, you can submit under the standard offer requirements if you have more than 2 years of corporate experience. So that concludes the overall changes for MAS Solicitation, which is scheduled for February, refresh 31. We will continue to take questions in the Interact notice, or you can continue to add them to the Q&A. And we thank you for your time today. Again, the slides will be will be provided as well as a written Q&A to all the questions that have been submitted today. I'll pass it over to you, Matt.